Ah, here is King Thorin the Third. Hello there, sir. I bring a message from your son.
Welcome, my adventurous friend. What news do you bring of Durin? How fares his campaign?
How fares his campaign? Hmm. I feared you had come bearing ill tidings, my friend. So long as my son is well, it puts my heart at ease. Hmm. I appreciate that you answered me as swiftly as you did, but please, set all of that down. My subjects will see that they are delivered to the proper dwarves here in the Lonely Mountain. At least I don't have to deliver them myself. As for this missive, let us see what it's written. All right. With great relief, you said everything on the landing. Yes, very much with great relief.
Tell me, how did my son come to change his mind, truly?
Hmm. Yes, it was for the reason that I sent them, and I am heartened that Glowing warned him against plans born of vengeance. I only wish my son had heeded his words. Durin leads the greatest Longbeard army we have brought to bear in 70 years, but he is still young, and in truth, untested. Yes, he has found victory in many stops along the journey from the Iron Hills, but it is hardship that shapes the dwarf. Durin was fortunate to know my father dying in his time. He too was young when he answered the call to war, and I often wonder what he would think of how swiftly Durin has grown into his name. Hmm. Listen to. Alright, so here are some thoughts of dying.
What can be said of my father Dain that has not been etched into the very history of Durin's folk?
He was but a stripling when he slew the great Ord Azog at Azanul Bazaar. It was he who answered the call of Thorin Oakenshield and defended the lonely mountain against Bolg and the goblins of the north, and in so doing ushered in a time of peace between men, elves, and dwarves. And again, when the enemy sent his servants to the gates of the lonely mountain, he died in defense of his people, a hero to his last breath. But despite all of his great deeds, I knew him as my father. I was his son, and Durin his beloved grandson. I must confess that I often saw more of dying in Durin than I did in myself. But what greater dwarf could one aspire to be? Hmm. So we need to know your thoughts on Durin also.
Durin is not as hot-tempered as my brother, nor is he as measured as his father. He is himself, and that is enough.
I was not so long ago that I sequestered Durin in the Iron Hills while battle raged in the Dale lands. But now my son leads an army to reclaim the mountain home. I dared not dream that Gundabad might be within reach, especially after the failure of the Iron Garrison, and yet my son has proven his possibility, both to me and to all of Durin's folk. Durin is not as hot-tempered as my brother, nor is he as measured as his father. He is himself, and that's enough. Durin were heir, as any dwarf will in his time, but I did not name him Durin that he would earn the name in his life. The name will earn him through his deeds. Say that again. But I did not name him Durin that he would earn his name in his life. The name will earn him through his deeds. Okay.
Durin has requested that I send a new mustard to the mountain home, but so too does he ask for my guidance, and that has given me much to consider.
It is true that many dwarves of the Iron Garrison pledged themselves into the service of my son, and more still journeyed from our holdings in the Misty Mountains to aid the Gabi-Lacha. Even so, there are many Longbeards and trustworthy dwarves of the Landarim and Nefangoth that might still be called upon. Durin has requested that I send a new muster to the Iron Mountain home. It will be done. But so too does my son ask for my guidance, and that has given me much to consider. Much to consider.
My son asks my guidance in winning a war.
Oh, what's so funny? I may not be a warrior in the manner of my father Pineleaf, but I know well enough that those of Karumumbar learned such lessons long ago. After all, it was Dain that organized the Karumumbar after the war's end. It was to be comprised of those who survived the Sixth War, and those who descended from Mar- Marasran, the burned dwarves of Azanubizar. Agnar, Lagi, Reithvald are not the only dwarves of that order who still dwell within the Lonely Mountain, my friend. Perhaps their wisdom might be of use to my son. Within the dwelling halls of Tumdum, there is an order hall of the Karub Hubnar. It is known among the dwarf folk as Akzaz-Zanar, and there you might find a dwarf named Herseg. She's barely beyond the age of a stripling, but she is the granddaughter of one of the greatest heroes of Azanubizar, and more importantly, one of the dearest friends of my father Dain. I have written her a note asking that she might introduce you to the works of her grandfather, Hamath Stormhammer. She too is well studied in the lore of Durin's folk, possessing wisdom beyond her years. Deliver this missive to her, and she will understand what I ask. To Akraz Zahar in the dwelling halls. All right. Oh, boy. This hobbit has a great deal of trouble trying to grasp hold of these dwarven names. I have found Akraz Zahar, but it looks like I've run into Frithgeir first.
I heard you followed Prince Durin in his quest. Was that not so?
So, what brings you back to the Lonely Mountain? I see. Well, don't let me keep you, my friend. For my part, I was just about to take Nar home. It has been a long day, and although he was more himself this morning, his mind has wandered. Perhaps Nar might wish you well in the quest, but I can make no promises. Nar? Well, let's see if I could get his attention. Hello? Nar shuffles for a moment, but his gaze soon fixes on. Hello! You look an awful lot like a hobbit I met long ago as Sutrakan. I hope they are well. We must be going, yes? I do hope Hebron makes his stew tonight. Well, he remembered me at least.
Wherever Prince Durin's quest might lead you, I hope you take care of yourself, my friend.
Thank you, Pineleaf. It means a great deal to me, and I know it does Nar good to see his friends. Wherever Prince Durin's quest might lead you, I hope that you take care of yourself. Perhaps we will see you in the next return to the Lonely Mountain. We'll see. Well, they really had to leave in a hurry. Now, let's see what we have up here. Vorthu Smoke Breath. Okay. Oh, that's... Oh, across the dimly lit hall of Akrazahar, you spot a young dwarf matching King Thorn's description. Ah, there she is.
A missive from King Thorin? I do hope this isn't about the cave claws again. Last time was an accident, I swear it.
Oh, no, it has nothing to do with cave claws. Oh, a missive from King Thorin. Yes. Well, let's see what's in it.
Let me see what all this is about.
Well, this isn't what I expected. I must apologize for my curt introduction, Pineleaf. I am Herseg, and I tend to the Akrazahar on behalf of the Karum Ubnar. As for this missive, it is seen that King Thorn wishes for me to introduce you to the works of my grandfather, Hamath Stormhammer. He kept a detailed account of his experiences in the Sixth War of the Dwarves and Orcs, especially the Battle of Azanubazar. In fact, a coalition of his volumes are right over there. Although I'm sure that Prince Durin has heard tales of this war before, the king insists that you study it will use to my son in Gabelaka. But it's no use studying the battle without hearing the beginning of the tale. I say King Thorn has given me a task of my own, but since I have a little time, I'd be honored to read it to you. So, what do you say? All right. So let me see what this is. Sure, Prince Durin has heard tales of the war before, but the king insists that the study of it will be of use to his son. All right.
So you wish to hear the tale of Nar?
I was just speaking to Nar. Yes, I must warn you, Pineleaf. It is quite grim, even for retelling. But first, how good. It seems that Frithgeir has taken Nar home. Nar is an old dwarf, and though it is no fault of his own, he is often forgetful and confused in his mind. It is as if the stones of a great mosaic were scattered upon the floor. All of the pieces remain in some form or another, but what it once depicted is lost. Even so, neither I nor anyone else in this hall would tell the tale of in his presence. Let us begin. Let us begin.
When you are ready, I will begin.
This be quite a tale.
Although he has at last found comfort amongst Durin's folk at the Lonely Mountain, the dwarf Nar has been witness to much hardship and tragedy throughout his long life. Long after the realm of Grark had fallen to the cold Drake Vetug, and 20 years after the Lonely Mountain fell to Smaug, King Thror and his folk came to dwell in a coombe near the wilds of Dunland.
From the old stronghold of Zadrugund, Thor ruled what remained of the two kingdoms he had fled in his life. His son was Thrain, a formidable warrior. His grandsons, Thorin and Freyrin, and granddaughter Dis, were all yet young. His people were few, poor, and hungry, and they knew little joys since the loss of their homes in the north. Dotage and gloom took their toll on King Thor, and he thought long of regaining the splendor of his father's halls. But it was not in the halls of Erebor where Schmog now slumbered upon the heirlooms of his people, nor the frozen wastes of the north that called him. It was Khazad-dûm itself. It has been more than 800 years since doom befell it, since the elves named it Moria, but it matters not. Thor determined that he would reclaim it, and in so doing restore the glory of his kingdom and Durin's folk. What true reason he, none know for certain. Perhaps he had gone mad, or perhaps not.
Yet, in his heart, Thror desired one last quest, though he would not say where he meant to go.
But whatever the case, he summoned Thrain and gave to him what heirlooms of the house remained. Chief among them, his ring, last of the 7 that had been given to the dwarf kings. He said to Thrain, "Riches may not yet spring anew from this bauble, my son, or perhaps not, yet one cannot breed gold without gold." When Thrain asked if his intent was to return to Erebor, Thor remained silent. After a long moment he said, "These bones are too old. I will not be avenged on Schmog. That fate, perchance, shall be yours, or your son's. I have known too much of loss and men's derision. I go to seek better fortunes, if they may yet be found." He did not say where he meant to go, and Thrain did not ask, but merely wished him fortunes in his quest.
All in Zudragund bade farewell to Thror, though they knew naught of his quest. Yet, to the surprise of his kin, Thror did not set off on his journey alone. With him, he took a single companion, Nar, his friend and esquire of old. And that is where our tale begins.
That's where it... Oh!
Together, Thror and Nar went north.
Just the beginning.
In old Eregion, Thor insisted against the West Gate, and the two continued northward. After a time, they crossed the Redhorn Pass and descended into Azanul Bizarre. In the dwarves' absence, it had become an unfamiliar and unfriendly land.
I could imagine.
The dale had long fallen silent, and what remained of the Great Way was choked with undergrowth. Yet there, beyond the brambles and brush, lay Thror's prize, the lost kingdom of Khazad-dûm.
Ah, yes, I could see it already.
Before them, the east gate yawned open, as if to beckon the two of them forth. But the journey had been long.
The journey had been long, and Nar thought better of seeking shelter within Moria. Well, I could understand that.
In need of respite, Nar urged Thror to take rest. Although Thror had set his mind on entering Khazad-dûm, he relented. And so, Nar toiled to set a small encampment at Azanul Bizarre.
A small little camp.
Nar built a fire and prepared what meager meal he could. But when the supper was ended, Thror stood at once.
When the supper ended, Thor stood. As if to answer, Nar knelt before the old king and helped him to fasten a shield to his arm.
It is time, Nar. I have lived long enough in exile. You have proven your loyalty, my friend, and I ask only that you await my return. Do not fear, dear Nar. I go to honor our forefathers.
Take heed, my friend. An ill wind blows in this vale.
But Thror cared not. Axe in hand, he went in, as proud as any dwarf ever crossed the doorstep of Khazad-dûm.
Like that can end well, right?
For many days Nar hid among the trees outside the gates, lonely and troubled.
Thor had bidden Nar to stay and await his return. But it was not merely the word of his king that kept him from daring to enter Moria. In truth, and to be shame, Nar was afraid. For many days he stayed hidden in the trees outside the gates. When he dared to draw near the gate and peer into the gloom, neither sound nor faintest flicker of light emerged from within. More troubling still, neither had Thror.
And so, Nar waited.
And waited?
And waited. And waited.
Weeks?
And waited.
Months?
And waited. Until he thought he could bear it no longer.
Despite every doubt, though, Nar's resolve did not falter. Even if he were fated to live the rest of his days huddled beside a fire at Azanuvzar, Nar would not disobey his king. It was his duty to await Thror's return.
As another day of waiting drew to an end, Nar slipped into dreams. In his mind, Nar beheld Thror standing triumphantly before the east gate. Behind him, a chorus of hammers and song echoed from the halls of Khazad-dûm. Such a joyous end to the quest Nar could have hardly imagined. But it would not be so.
It was but a dream.
When Nar awoke, his clothing was cold and heavy with rain.
Nar's rest had ended abruptly, and in a daze he tried to regain his bearings. Above him the sky loomed dark. Its hue was sickly purple, and he could not tell if it was day or night. Aside from the sound of trickling rainfall, all was still and silent. Alas, Nar would have little time to ponder this situation.
Breaking the silence, a distant voice shouted in the Orcish town. A horn blared, harsh and ugly, out of Moria. And from the east gate came a sickening thud, echoing through Azanul-Bizar. Fear for Thror seized Nar's heart, yet, loyal as ever and heedless of all peril, Nar drew his sword. Abandoning his hiding spot, he rushed up the steps to the east gate.
Oh, what do we find here? Up, up, up. Up further. Oh, that's not good.
Nar stopped at once, frozen in horror. Out of the darkness had flown a body, its limbs all a tangle. And nearby, a head lay before the gates of Khazad-dûm. Nar had known the truth at once, but wished not to believe it. It was Thror.
As Nar crept closer, there came a chittering laughter from beyond the darkness of the east gate.
And then, out of the darkest shadows of Moria, came a voice.
We know you're there, Bidling. We've been watching you. But never fear. We won't take your head today. No, you'll make a fine messenger yet. Well, come on then.
Messenger.
You see what we do to beggars and vagabonds who barge through these doors? He got what he had coming, the old thief, trying to filch what's ours. You're not bringing your reeking whiskers around these parts again, and this is what you'll get. You tell them that. Tell them all. And when his family asks who killed him and who's king here, that will be your answer. Go on, have a look. It's right there on his face. There, I wrote it.
Wrote?
You can read, can't you?
Thor's head.
Nar knelt to inspect Thror's head, and upon it was carved the name Azog.
Azog.
That's right! I'm the master of this house! Leave it be, Beggarbeard. That's mine now. Yeah, some coin for your troubles. It's the least we can do, eh, boys? Now, off with you.
And so, Nar fled weeping from Khazad-dûm. For many months, Nar wandered in the wilderness, racked with sorrow. The sight of his king's defilement branded in his heart.
At first, Nar again made for the Redhorn Pass, but orcs beyond count had gathered there and watched him with their red eyes, and so Nar fled back the way he had come. As he passed the gates of Khazad-dûm again, more great orcs, including some larger than he had heard before, had surrounded Thor's corpse and were hacking it to pieces. Into that hateful frenzy, a great mass of crows descended, and to them the orcs began to fling the scraps of the dwarf king. Nar dared not look again. Tear-blind, Nar ran on along the banks of the Helen Zaram, fleeing the orcs and wolves that now hunted him in cruel sport. When at last he came to the ruins of Amdon, he found them barred, and black arrows hounded at every step. Desperate to escape his own doom, however, Nar thought of Kilinala and leapt down the paths along the stream. By now, stroke of fortune, Nar had won his escape, but behind him the laughter of Azog and the orcs rang in his ears. For many months Nar wandered in the wilderness, racked by sorrow. The sight of the king's defilement branded in his heart. At long last he found his way north to the high pass along the misty mountains, then made his way back to Thorn's Combe. By the time he entered Zugragun, the guard scarcely recognized him, so haggard and wild he had grown. Nar was never well in his mind again. What is the aftermath of that incident? Maybe you'll find out in the next episode of The Legacy of Durin.